What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Mind of Marsal podcast. This is episode number 102. I am your host, Armando Marsal. You could find all of my work over at fantasyguru.com. Follow me under to the machine at Armando underscore Marsal, as well as on Threads, TikTok, and Instagram at Mind of Marsal. Before I jump into it, I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. I greatly appreciate you all. Remember, if you're enjoying the content, enjoying the podcast, enjoying what we talk about here, please make sure you follow, rate, and review the podcast wherever it is you're consuming it, whether it's Podbean, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to it. Please make sure you follow, rate, and review the podcast. We are going to continue our team preview series, and today we are going to be talking about the AFC South. With me, as usual, is my guy Tyler Buecher. Tyler, how's it going, brother?
Doing good, Armando. Excited to be here to talk some AFC South content. I've been knee deep in the rookie drafts as of late. I've got three or four leagues drafting concurrently right now, and some of these players are players we'll be talking about today. So excited to chop it up with you.
Yeah, man. I've really, and I say this pretty much every time we're on here, but I'm really enjoying this series, man. It's really diving into these teams, diving into some of the rookies, like you mentioned. You and I are in one of those rookie drafts together right now. I'm also in one. It's pretty much wrapped up there, the football diehards one. So that one's pretty much in the books. I think I have one more pick left, but it's a fun time of the year, right? We had a meeting yesterday. I am going to announce it now. Our NFL draft guide does go live on June 2nd. There's going to be so much content starting June 2nd. You and I were talking a little bit before, right? Like we're going to have a lot of work, but that means there's going to be a lot of content on the site. So going to be rankings. There's going to be the dynasty guide, the best ball guide. You're going to be cooking up some new things for that best ball guide. We're going to have player outlooks. I mean, just so much content. Make sure you check that out over at fantasyguru.com. So I'm excited, man. I feel like, there was that slow period in the NFL, but now things are starting to pick up. Things are starting to ramp up. Training camp is around the corner. Like I don't want to say it's football season, but I feel like we're starting to get into that mid-season form that we usually get here. And sooner or later, I know you're already doing best ball drafts, but sooner or later, I'm gonna get my feet wet with these best ball drafts. And then I'm one of those that just I start getting my feet wet and I just, let's just throw the body. Let's just get soaking wet and start doing a bunch of drafts. So I am looking forward to that time of the year, Tyler. Before jumping into it, man. So why don't you tell everyone what you got cooking over there, what you got planned coming up, a little bit of what you're going to be doing for the draft guide and things like that.
Sure, yeah, our draft guide, like you said, launches on the 2nd of June, which is just a few weeks away. I'll be putting out, I believe, 60 different player outlooks at the wide receiver position, running through my top 60, doing some tiered rankings as well for that. We'll have our what's it called? Our bold predictions will be a big part of our draft guide launch too. The best ball guide will come out, I believe, either a few days after the initial launch, where it'll include all kinds of content in terms of basically running the gamut. If you've never played before, basically an introduction to the format, where to play, how to construct teams, some advanced stats in terms of what's won recently, what we project to win this year, how roster construction comes together, how draft capital comes together, and it's a dynamic piece that adds a lot of content to it. We'll have players to target, players to avoid, rankings, CSV uploadable rankings for multiple sites, content driven for specific sites because there's different strategies for every single website out there and the different tournaments you're playing in. Just a lot, a lot to uncover there. So I'm very, very excited to break into the best ball format once again for Fantasy Guru. Yeah, it'll be up on the site very, very shortly here in early June.
Yeah, I think if I don't quote me here, guys, I think it's either June 9th or June 12th. That's when that should, I think it is. And it's not because he's on the show with me, but Jeff Mann said it yesterday. I'm gonna say it to best ball content that you could find, Tyler Beaker. Like he dives into everything. You dive into everything, dude. Like it's one of my favorite, parts of the draft guide. I read it every year. I enjoy reading it. And it truly like the work you put out there for that best ball guide, it's truly amazing, man. So I
Thank
am
you.
looking forward to that launch myself, man. So yeah, you mentioned tons of content there. Another piece of news is now you can find the Mind of Marcel podcast on YouTube. I started posting the shows there. So starting from episode 99, I unfortunately do not have video content for all of the other episodes. So those are just gonna have to be audio. But moving forward, all of the podcasts will be on YouTube. So make sure you check those out. Tyler, let's jump right into it, dude. Let's talk AFC South. Here we got the Houston Texans, the Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans. A lot of new, faces in a lot of these teams. I think it's a very interesting division. Last year, Houston won the division with a 10-7 record. Then Indy was second, 8-9. You had the Jacksonville Jaguars and Tennessee. Really, bad seasons for both sides. I was expecting a much better season from Jacksonville. They finished 4-13. I think it was a very disappointing season. I think a roller coaster ride, right? Since Trevor Lawrence has been there, and it's a franchise that we've seen kind of like that. It's either hit or miss. Um, they they did some pretty good things in the draft, so we'll see, and we'll talk about it here today in depth about that. But unfortunately, they're not the first team we're going to discuss. The first team we're going to discuss here is Houston. Tyler, before jumping into Houston, though, give me a little overview on this division. Like, do you see it playing out like it did last year? Do you think there's going to be more competition? Like, how do you see this season playing out for the AFC South?
Last year there was a clear divide where we had the Texans and Colts at the top, Jaguars, Titans at the bottom. I think this year we could see it far closer to being with multiple teams near that 500 mark rather than guys all the way at the bottom. I feel like Tennessee's transition to adding Cam Ward will really, really help their offense. Jacksonville adding Liam Cohen. I think if their defense is able to get better, I think the Jaguars can be take a step forward as well. The Colts are the wild card to me, where we don't know how that one's going to play out. The quarterback situation is fluid at this time. And then Houston, like, I'm just glad to see a change in offensive coordinator. I'm hoping we can see some better blocking up front for CJ Stroud here in year three. But the Texans should be the belle of the ball once again as the most likely candidate to win their respective division here in the AFC South.
Yep, I agree with that. I think Houston's the favorite here. You look at this team and you look at the roster. You look again, it goes down to quarterback, right? Like I think they have the best quarterback in the division as well. I think that's going to help them.
Mhm.
All right, let's jump right into it, man. Let's talk Houston Texans. So, you mentioned it. They added a new offensive coordinator there. I think the biggest loss was Laramie Tunsil for them. Like that's a huge loss. The offensive line. They also lost Stephon Diggs. They lost Kenyon Green. They did add Christian Kirk. I think that's interesting. They added Cam Robinson. They added some safety there. Um, they obviously did good in the draft. They added offensive tackle in the draft. They did two receivers. We're going to talk about them, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel. We've talked about them in other podcasts and other shows. And then they did pretty good, I think, in free agency as well here, Tyler. What are your overall thoughts here as far as free agency, key losses, and key additions for this team? Do you think they did a good job? Do you still think they're lacking here? Where are you at with that?
It's a big year in transition for this squad where they jettisoned a lot of guys on the offensive line. They let both Stephon Diggs go. They probably won't have Tank Dell this year, so we're going to see a big change for their passing attack. Their defense saw some significant turnover. They also had a lot of additions here in terms of defensive players added specifically to this unit. One of my favorites being linebacker EJ Speed, a tackle magnet for the Colts. Interesting to see him stick in the division, go from the Colts to the Texans for a team that really needs some middle linebacker help. And it's fun to see D'Amico Ryans, a former middle linebacker, pick up a middle linebacker of note. Excited to see what he does there. But for me, I think it's mostly just been retooling this unit. The offensive line was not the best last season. They were 26th in pass success rate. They were 22nd in pass block win rate, 31st in rush success rate, 31st in run block win rate. So just getting some new blood there along the offensive line, I thought was a big move here. Cam Robinson, Trent Brown, kind of older guys, kind of been around the block. We know what we're gonna expect there. Lakin Tomlinson, another veteran guard added. But I imagine we're gonna see some new blood there in the offensive line relative to what we saw last year. It's just how quick can this line gel and get CJ Stroud upright. Last year, 52 sacks, second most in the league. Big, big issue for them last year. So I'm hoping that and the combination of adding a new offensive coordinator here, Nick Caley, we're no longer in the PFF Bobby era. We can hopefully take a step forward. I'm hoping Caley can help Stroud return to his roots of year one, and we just kind of ignore year two as a little minor blip on the otherwise precipitous climb for Stroud, who's been a great passer.
Yeah, man. And I think we also have to take into consideration a lot of injuries occurred on this offense, last season. Stephon Diggs was off to a hot start. He got hurt. Joe Mixon was dinged up as well early in the season, and they lost Tank Dell later in the season. Like it's one of those situations where things really you know, I want to say they just weren't as consistent and they weren't as structured as they were the previous year for this offense. So I am looking forward to this. And I think you mentioned something very important, right? How quickly can this offensive line gel? And that's something that we're going to have to pay close attention to here in training camp and the preseason and early on in the season. And don't be surprised. I always say this, like, don't be surprised if it takes a little bit of time before you see this unit really gelling and really playing at the level that they're capable of playing. It could take a month, it could take a couple of weeks. So don't be impatient with this offense if you're invested in it from a fantasy standpoint here. Speaking of that, let's talk CJ Stroud. Like someone that I think was, I don't want to say overdrafted last year, but I think a lot of people were chasing his, rookie campaign. And I don't want to say that was his ceiling either, but he exceeded expectations, I think, by a wide margin for a lot of people. And that inflated his price tag last year. I kind of feel like it's come back down to a point where I'm okay with investing in him, given his current ADP, given his current value. Um, are you viewing him as a QB1 heading into the season? Are you viewing him as a QB2? Like, where are you at with CJ Stroud in 2025?
Yeah, it's a great question. Last year, we kind of projected him to take a step backwards just because last year, the 2023 Offensive Rookie of the Year season was just so spectacular, where just it seemed like he eclipsed what is projectable and what most people thought was going to happen. 2024, yeah, he saw big steps back in multiple categories. Passing touchdown rate dropped, yards per attempt dropped. The fantasy production went from 18.7 fantasy points per game to 13.7. Sack rate up, interception rate up, and like there were a lot of injuries too that we could also attribute this to. But when I looked fast forward here into 2025, we look at like the new weapons that are coming in to replace Stephon Diggs, who's kind of playing that slot role. We've got Christian Kirk now jumping in there on the outside instead of Tank Dell. The 5'9" Tank Dell will be like a 6'4" Jaden Higgins, likely on the outside to replace these. So I think there's going to be some early speed bumps when we also factor in the offensive line, but there's also the ceiling for some productivity here, especially late in the year. And after last year's early ADP of like, I think he was going right around where Joe Burrow was going
Yeah.
last year. And now we're getting a much better discount relative to what we saw the season prior. Let me see where he is right now. He's going, pardon me,
QB 15.
QB 18.
I was going to say
18.
15 in that range. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big jump. We're no longer paying a premium for him there. You can get him confidently as your quarterback two in best ball formats. I'm down. I think you're not paying a premium, so I usually like to target at least one mobile quarterback in these types of contests for best ball. I'm cool with Stroud at QB 18 to be my non-mobile version that still offers some high ceilings. This is a pretty darn good offense here, and we know this defense is going to keep them in games. Um, Stroud's in for, I think, an efficient year.
Yeah, I think that's the key word, right? Efficiency. Like that's where
Yeah.
he's going to be. He was very efficient as a rookie. I think we'll see, that this year. I think there's going to be more efficiency for him. I'm viewing him, and I'm not saying he's going to be this year's Joe Burrow by any means, but I'm viewing him like I viewed Joe Burrow last year, where he was coming in to me, in my opinion, a discounted price. I was buying. I'm going to be buying CJ Stroud at a discounted price at this point. Like I feel like I would be okay with him as my QB1. I agree with you. Maybe more suited for a QB2 in a best ball format, but he's one of those quarterbacks, and we've talked about some of these quarterbacks that if you miss out on that elite tier of quarterbacks, I'm totally fine with landing on CJ Stroud in a season long or a redraft format as my QB1. I won't be hesitant to do that because at that point, I think my foundation will be very strong and he's going to give me a pretty solidified floor. And like you mentioned, a ceiling that I think, we're going to be seeing this year more often than not. So very good supporting cast here, and a good team. And I like the change of offensive coordinator as well there. So I think it's going to be a big year for CJ Stroud. I think he's going to take a step forward. I think that, that regression that we saw last year was not expected, but wasn't surprising to anyone. So yeah, I'm in on CJ Stroud this year. I'm buying. I like him quite a bit. You mentioned, let's talk about some of the receivers here. They obviously have Nico Collins, who we were on him last year. We've been talking about him now for a couple of years. Really took that massive step, like truly showed what kind of receiver he is. And I don't want to say superstar, but he's a very, very good receiver. Like in my opinion, he's an elite receiver at the NFL. And I think that that's going to continue. I don't think last year was a fluke. I think he is their guy. And now you get help on the outside with Higgins. You mentioned it. Now it's Tank. He's going to take on the Tank Del Ro. He's not Tank Del, but he's going to take on the Tank Del Ro. And he's like almost a foot taller than Tank Del, right? So
Yeah.
like you have two big ass receivers on the outside. Then you get a very good Christian Kirk like receiver in the slot. You got yourself some pretty good weapons here. You also have Dalton Schultz. But let's talk about the receivers here. Nico Collins, top 10, right? Like top 10 receiver in your books in fantasy this year.
Yep. Yeah.
Are you're investing as such?
Yes, I have no
Okay.
problems with that. He's been top 10 each of the past 2 years, averaging over 17 plus fantasy points per game each of the past 2 years, even with some injuries along the way.
Yeah.
But over this 2 year span, top five in most games of 20 plus yards down the field. This guy's a big playmaker. Stroud's undisputed top target. I'm definitely in. You're getting him right now at that 1-2 turn. I'm comfortable paying that.
Yeah, I am too. And you have an accurate quarterback throwing the ball, one that could throw the ball deep too. So like for me, it's like all the stars align here. You know what I'm saying when it
Yes.
comes to Nico Collins. So I'm in on Nico Collins. Christian Kirk. Where do you stand with him? Because I feel like this is a role, and I know we've changed offensive coordinator, so it could be a little bit different. But this last year in this offense, the slot receiver was fruitful, over 20% target share there for Stephon Diggs when he was healthy, and he was getting a lot of opportunities. Do you think a healthy Christian Kirk can assume that kind of role of a 20% target share or whatnot in 2025 here?
He's a tough one for me. For those that forget, he's coming off a broken collarbone, so it's not like a knee injury or anything. But the season prior, he also ended the season on IR thanks to a groin tear. So it's back-to-back seasons. Kirk's been unable to finish. He's entering his age 29 season. New offensive scheme, new quarterback, new offensive coordinator. He's also on a 1 year deal. I envision him to be playing predominantly slot here. Makes sense. But we really haven't seen anything of late to value him higher than like a wide receiver four. I think he's on that wide receiver four, even wide receiver five kind of fringe, where best case scenario, he imitates what Diggs offered, which was kind of hit or miss if you look back on a per game basis. So I'm putting Kirk in like the better in best ball quote unquote bucket for 2025 drafting. I think he's a fine flex play, but I think you're going to be more frustrated than not if you flex him. So I'm going to just be really targeting him in best ball formats. And whenever I grab Nico, I'll be looking for Kirk later, and then later trying to add Stroud there to complete the stack.
Yeah, I think the Houston stack is one I'm going to be pretty invested in this season. I think when you look at pricing or whatnot, it'll be good. You mentioned Collins is probably the most expensive one of the bunch here, and it's a price I'm willing to pay. So, um, Higgins or Noel. We've talked a little bit about this. Like, I'm on Team Higgins here. I think that he's going to step right in, and I think he'll carve out a pretty solid role. It might take some time before he truly gets going. I personally think, like, because of some of the things you said, I wouldn't be surprised if Higgins just becomes that number two target for Stroud in 2025 over Kirk. Do you see it the same way I do there, or do you think Kirk would be the guy that kind of takes that second wide receiver duties?
It may start out as Kirk, but I could see that passing of the baton very, very early. I really like Higgins as a prospect. Big bodied wideout out of Iowa State. Um, we're going to have Nico as that X. So we're going to see Higgins get more of the flanker role where he'll play off the line of scrimmage, which I think will really help for a young guy whose route release package isn't quite the best at this time. So some free releases is nice. If we can get him to play some big slot too from time to time, I think that'll be great for him. But yeah, I mean, this guy's got crazy good hands, three drops and over 200 targets over the last 2 years combined, a skill set to consistently win on the perimeter. I like this guy. I think he's got wide receiver four flex appeal. I honestly would rather take him over Kirk right now. And when
Yes.
I look at like their ADPs, they're not too apart. Higgins being wide receiver 52, Kirk being wide receiver 61.
Yeah, I'm taking Higgins. Like I'm going to take Higgins in that range. I would be more inclined to take Higgins given like how close they are. Now, if you were to tell me like one is, wide receiver 50 something and the other one's wide receiver 80 something, okay, maybe I'll take the discount. But I think this is close enough where you just take the upside, right? Because at this point, at this stage of his career, you know what you're going to get from Christian Kirk at the best, right? Like let's say he does stay healthy and he does give you a good season. I think you know what his ceiling is. And I don't think it's not that I don't think we have not seen Higgins ceiling. We don't know what that is. We only can project for it. And given everything that his profile and all, he's someone that I think can be a huge part of this offense and really produce at a high level next to Nico Collins. So I'm totally in on Higgins here. As far as Jalen Noel, what do you view him as here?
It's tough to back a wide receiver four on a
Yeah.
squad. I just don't think there's enough volume here to make him worth the selection. I will say in best ball, we talked about Kirk being wide receiver 61. Noel's right behind him at wide receiver 64. So there's not much of a gap there. People are really bullish on Noel, who a lot of film analysts really liked his film coming out of Iowa State. Round three pick. It's fun to see both Higgins and Noel continue their journey together, but I think Noel's probably more of a dynasty stash where he's a great taxi squad candidate where you're probably not going to see him much in year one. Maybe it's a red shirt NFL season as a rookie, but more of a year two play, especially if they only keep Kirk for this 1 year deal, where I think Noel immediately just slides right into the primary slot role in 2026.
Now, well, the thing is, like, if Kirk doesn't stay healthy all season, like we could see Noel this, like that would be the way that we see more
Mhm.
opportunities for Noel, right? Like that, because he's going to be behind Kirk. A healthy Kirk is going to keep Noel off the field, like you said. But if Kirk does indeed get hurt, Noel could see some opportunities here. I think probably the way I would do it in best ball, and you could tell me if you see it the same or if you're in a different, is if you're going to be investing in the stack, I'd probably do 50-50, right? Like 50% like of my Houston stacks with Kirk, maybe the other 50 with Noel. I want to say that's kind of like a hedge, but maybe
Yeah.
do that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I'll note that this team also added Braxton Berrios, who just seems to never go away. He'll find a way onto the field somehow on like those
I
third
know.
downs and steal just enough to maybe make Noel, I don't want to say fantasy irrelevant, but definitely take some of the shine and appeal off. And then they also added Justin Watson from the Chiefs, a field stretcher who can easily fill that outside role. Then we've got John Mechie, a bit of a wild card in the mix. So there's a lot of bodies here. I'm curious to see how it all plays out, but I think sticking with the top guys, Collins, 25% target share feels like we can write that with Sharpie.
Yeah.
Higgins and Kirk, though, it'll be probably variable on a week to week level.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to ask about Mechie. Are we done with it? That's it? Is that water under the bridge?
He's just kind of that guy that lingers on dynasty squads, and when you need to make a cut, your mouse hovers over his name, and you're like, it might be time. It might be time.
But then you go somewhere else.
But then you go somewhere else. Yeah, you kick the can down the road, and who knows? Maybe week six we see a random spike week from Mechie.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Anything else on this receiving group?
Dalton Schultz, I was not impressed with him last year. So
No.
keep in mind all the injuries that we saw from Diggs, from Nico, who missed some time as well, Tank Dell. This trio, like that starting trio I just listed, they only played 66 total passing snaps together, with all three on the field at the same time before injuries started piling up. Schultz failed to rise to the occasion. He had the opportunity, which is really disappointing to see a guy like that. He played all 17 games. He averaged just 4.9 targets per game. That was tight end 15 among all tight ends, 7.0 fantasy points per game. That's so replaceable. Nobody cares about 7 fantasy points. That's tight end 28 on a per game basis. Aim higher. That's all I got to say. Aim higher.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't even want to say a floor play. Like
Yeah.
I don't even see it as a floor play. Like he's that guy that gives you that 6 to 8 fantasy points. Like, sure, I'd rather give you
A
some of
dime a
those.
dozen.
Yeah, you could get that from Tyler Conklin.
Yeah.
Like, or yeah. So I agree with you, man. Like, he's outside of the top 12 for me. I'm gonna safely assume that he's outside of the top 12 for you as well, as far as rankings are concerned.
He's outside the top 24.
Yeah, he's not like he won't be part of my Houston stacks all that much, if at all.
Yeah.
I might sprinkle one or two. Depends. But no, I'm out. All right, let's talk about Joe Mixon. Where are we at with Joe Mixon this year, man? Like, I feel like for me, it's RB2 territory, right? Like outside the top 12, maybe a little bit outside the top, maybe that top outside the top 15, but right there in that range. Um, the RB 16, 17 in that range for me, maybe. Where are you at with him?
RB16 is his ADP, so you are right in line with consensus there. Yeah, 7 years in Cincinnati, turned in a rock solid year one here in Houston.
Yeah.
Really liked what we saw: 1,016 rushing yards and 11 rushing touchdowns in 14 games played. Problem is, he's entering his age 29 season. He's got a boatload of touches under his belt at this point of his career. When we look at some of the advanced stats, among all 46 backs with 100 plus carries, he was RB 22 in explosive run rate, RB 38 in missed tackles forced per attempt, RB 29 in yards after contact per attempt. These were stats that he used to crush in, particularly the missed tackles forced per attempt. He actually shined in this as a collegiate prospect. Um, but yeah, I mean, just things add up. The offensive line was also a negative. Sure, we got to add that. New offensive coordinator Nick Caley, he comes from the Rams offense, so I think that's at least notable that we've seen the Rams come in and Kyron Williams. We've seen some other backs from time to time step up, despite not being a very very high passing attack there in Los Angeles. Those teams were still able to put up some quality rushing production and fantasy running back assets. In my eyes, I think it would be wise to limit Mixon's workload. I think we saw him kind of, I don't want to say run out of gas, but there were clear games where he didn't have the juice that he typically did. Averaged 21.6 opportunities per game. That's rushes plus targets. So maybe we see a slight decrease in that and an upping in efficiency. I mean, there were definitely times last year when Mixon missed time where finding a competent number two was a real issue for them. So I'm curious to see how this year's rookie Woody Marks does. He's a guy from USC, round four selection. Smaller back, 207 pounds, but a lot of receptions, 60 and 83 catches his first two collegiate years at Mississippi State before later transferring to USC. But yeah, I think Marks offers that third down change of pace ability to try to negate all of the work and all the snaps for Mixon. I like him a lot more than like what we saw from Damian Pierce, who was super ineffective last year, and Dario Ogunbowale is what, 31 years old. He's getting up there too. So I just don't see Marks taking over if there were a Mixon injury as a legitimate bell cow. I think Marks is probably at best a committee back, so he's probably not a player I'm eagerly attacking in dynasty leagues. But I just word vomited a ton right there. What are your thoughts on the Houston Texans backfield and what you're looking at here?
No, so I agree. So I think Marks is a good complementary back to Mixon, right? Like I think Mixon's going to be that guy that gets the short yardage, the in between the tackle stuff. He can catch passes too. I'm not saying he can't, but it'll be that change of pace, and then they don't have to give Mixon 21.3 opportunities per game. Like I think you could cut that down to 17 opportunities per game, and now you have a young rookie running back that can catch passes in the backfield, gives you a different dynamic, something that they really didn't have last year, right? Like I don't think they had that last year, or at least not an efficient or an effective pass catching back like that out of the backfield there. Damon Pierce just was not the guy that they maybe expected. I think he showed promise as a rookie, and that was it. Like that was it. Unfortunately, it was not good for him last year. And I think this is why they made that move. So I'm okay with, like, I feel like before I invest and I'm gonna go back to Schultz, before I invest in Schultz in a Houston stack, I rather take a chance on Marks because he is going to catch passes to the backfield and there's going to be that correlation with CJ Stroud. I don't view him as a clear cut handcuff. He's not someone I'm going to handcuff with because I agree with you 100%. I think if Mixon were to miss time, we're going to see some type of committee here. You know, how it works out, how it plays out, no idea. I just don't see Marks being that guy that's going to handle 15 to 17 opportunities per game should Mixon miss any time. So I'm in lockstep with you when it comes to this backfield, man. Well, are you viewing Mixon in that same range as I am? Are you a little bit higher, a little lower on him, or are you right around there with the consensus as well?
Yeah, I'm cool buying at cost right now. I
Yeah.
said RB 16. That is currently 51. So at that 4 or 5 turn.
Yeah, I think that's fair, man. I really
Hmm.
do. And he averaged 0.8 fantasy PPR points per opportunity. Something he's been like, if you look back at his time in Cincinnati, did that too. Like, so as far as what he did when he got the opportunities, really didn't change all that much. It's just a matter of he's getting up there in age. He missed, I think it was 3 games last season that he didn't play, and he did look a little bit gassed, right? Like down the stretch. So yeah, I don't want to say conserve him, but I wouldn't utilize him as much and often as they did last year. I think that that's something we're going to see here in 2025. Anything else here with Houston that you want to talk about that we haven't discussed?
No, I think we hit everything here.
Tank Dell, let's quickly right, there's reports that he's probably not even gonna play in 2025. I've talked about this with Ray Flowers on his show. Do you think if you're in Dynasty, are you holding Dell? What do you do with him? I'm putting him on the IR, and I'm not going to cut him right now. But I don't want to say I'm an optimistic person. I try to be. I'm not overly optimistic about this situation. Unfortunately, that's a serious injury. He's a small wideout, and it's been like back-to-back seasons with some big injuries there.
Yeah, I don't think he'll ever be the same player again.
Yeah,
And I hate to say that, but I think now's the time to get out where you can get anything. The problem is, what are you going to get? I think at best, you're probably throwing him in as like a sweetener on a deal where maybe you elevate from, I don't know, maybe you're trying to get a round two pick, but the current person will only budge with a three. Maybe you throw Dell in there to hopefully get it to the back end of round two as like a sweetener, but the trade value's got to be next to nothing.
yeah, yeah. That's the problem with him, right? You can't trade him away. You're not going to buy him. So it's one of those you
Right.
got kind of got to hold. All right, let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. You mentioned the quarterback situation here is very fluid. Their secondary was a mess last year. All right, they added some pieces in the draft and free agency, so they addressed that. They lost Will Fries. They lost Joe Flacco. They lost, you mentioned EJ Speed there. That's, I think, a key loss on the defense there. They lost Ryan Kelly. They lost offensive line here. They added Brandon Smith. Uh, they added some Daniel Jones. We're going to talk about the quarterback situation. Tyler Warren in the draft. They added some secondary pieces and offensive tackle in the draft as well. Um, Overall, how do you think the Colts did this offseason when it comes to free agency and the NFL draft?
I kind of like what they did. The offensive line was not the best in terms of pass blocking. They were 25th in pass block win rate, so moving on from several pieces made sense to me. Let's keep in mind they added a new defensive coordinator here. Lou Anarumo comes from the Cincinnati Bengals. Um, you mentioned the injuries in the secondary really kind of uh, hamstrung this defense from the get-go, but I really like the players they've added this offseason. Cornerback Charvarius Ward comes over from the Chiefs. We've seen him from there. Cam Bynum from the Vikings, versatile safety. They re-signed David Long, a viable cornerback there. So I think we've got some horses in the back end to actually play some pass defense here. I like what they did there. Offensively, this is where we can start like nitpicking things. They let Joe Flacco go. They let Trey Sermon go. Kylan Granson, I thought was a competent tight end. I was excited to see him. The offensive lineman you talked about, I'm okay with it. Like Ryan Kelly is up there in age. Will Fries got overpaid by the Vikings. Don't understand that move for sure. But the additions were very minimal on the offensive side of the ball in terms of being active in free agency. I thought they'd be a bit more active there. Problem is, it's all centered around Anthony Richardson. Let's rip the Band-Aid off.
Yep.
You can have great playmakers. It doesn't matter when your quarterback's completing less than half of his attempts. This guy is not great. He's failed to take any kinds of step forwards, and I don't want to dunk on him too bad. Like my issue with him is more of the fact that he just hasn't had a lot of attempts throughout his career. He had less than 400 pass attempts in Florida, a rookie year of just 84 pass attempts. So this guy's still learning the position. He's still like what 22, 23. He's also had some changes in terms of the offense he's had to play. We really couldn't see the Shane Steichen get the most out of him here in this 2024 season, but and I just I feel like it's too early to quit on him, but I feel like you can't start him. And it's a tough spot for a franchise to be in when you spend the number four overall selection to pick him up. The problem is the only way he's going to get better is by feeding him to the fire, feeding him to the wolves, whatever cliche you want to use, and just seeing him eventually take that step forward. I just don't know if we will see it, but until we continue to do so, like undermining him by benching him for Joe Flacco sporadically at times last year, undermining him by adding in Daniel Jones and saying we're fine with a 1-2 competition here. It's going to be an open competition between these two. doesn't speak real well in terms of the faith. I don't know. What are your thoughts with Richardson? I know he's a tough one.
48% completion rate last year, dude. That's bad. Like so when he was coming out of college, there was no denying that he was just an athletic freak. Like it was, like that was what was alluring about him, right? Like it's like, dude, like he could make some crazy throws, he could move around. Problem is he can make crazy throws, just not at the players. Like he's just throwing the ball. And I agree with you, right? Where if you want to kind of you either see it through or you don't, though. But this back and forth, that doesn't help the player. Like that, what is that going to do? You lose faith. Like you have to think of it outside of the skill sets and think of it from a mental standpoint, right? Like you're a young player. You mentioned 22 years old. You're a young kid, right? You feel like your team has lost confidence in you. You feel like the coaching staff has lost confidence in you. I'm sure the support the players. I'm sure the locker room that there's been comments. I'm sure of that, right? Where things have happened that kills your confidence. You got to build that back up. Like that's where I think that you got to build that back up, and you have to make a decision as a franchise and say we are good. We're all in with you, or we're not all in with you. But you can't go back and forth. I'm personally out on Richardson myself. I haven't been in on Richardson since he entered, simply because of his price tag. The first couple of years. Now I'm out because I just I think it's going to take a lot for him to turn it around. Is it impossible? No. Am I completely out on him long term? Not necessarily, but I don't want to invest in him this season. I kind of want to see it play out and see how it works. If I miss out on the elite season, sure, fine. It is what it is. But man, from what I saw last year, it didn't look good. He missed. It was really bad. And I know there's been like a lot of comparisons of, well, Josh Allen was inaccurate. The inaccuracy issues were much different from Josh Allen, early on in his career to Anthony Richardson, last year. It was way different. Like Josh Allen would sail a couple yards over your head, or Anthony Richardson missed like really, really bad at times. Um, I think at some point this season we're going to see Daniel Jones. Like honestly, I think we're going to see Daniel Jones, and call me crazy, but I think the offense will be more efficient with Daniel Jones. Like I do think that he's going to make this offense better. I think he's going to make the pass catchers better. I think he's going to open up the run game. Anthony Richardson doesn't possess the same skill sets, doesn't possess the athleticism and that rushing ability that Anthony Richardson does, but Daniel Jones can run the football. Like we've seen it. Like one of his best seasons came because of what he did on the ground and not through the air. I think he was like one of the worst quarterbacks. I don't know the exact stats, but he was one of the worst quarterbacks from a passing standpoint and passing touchdowns and all that stuff. And he still finished pretty high up there in fantasy because of what he did on the ground. I think you can win with Daniel Jones. I think he's going to make this offense better. But this is the problem. If you do that, as a front office, you're admitting I was wrong. And I don't know if they're ready to do that, Tyler. And that's the thing. And that's where you're at. It's a very difficult position to be in as a franchise, as a front office. But it's either you cut your losses now and start winning, or go down this rabbit hole. And if it doesn't work out, you're pretty much guaranteed out of a job, right? And I think we've seen really good franchises do this quickly. We've seen the 49ers with Trey Lance. We've seen it with the Steelers with a couple of their quarterbacks where they just move on quickly and they say, you know what, we're going to cut our losses. We were wrong, but we're going to build from here. I don't know what the Colts are going to do, to be honest with you, but I do anticipate that this is the way I picture it: is Anthony Richardson will get that shot early on in the season, but that they're not the patience is very thin here, right? Like you start messing up, you're out quickly. It's not going to be one of this where we're going to give you 8, 9 games. No, it's 1 or 2 weeks. You can't get your shit together. I'm sorry. We're moving on to Daniel Jones, someone who I think he's just honestly a better fit for this team. So, do you agree with any of that? I don't know, man. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, for sure. I think Daniel Jones definitely offers a lot more stability. Uh, they talked about they being Ballard and Shannon Steichen talked about QB1. The role there will come down to quote unquote consistency and production. not really what you'd put Anthony Richardson under that bucket. Uh, I mean, we've seen honestly neither of these
Correct.
quarterbacks have really done it. They've done it in like brief spells, sure, but not consistently. So, curious to see how this one plays out. I think Chris Ballard's been around forever. Like he's been their general manager since 2017. Routinely leans on super athletic prospects. So like him finally being done with like the veteran guys that he's been trying to band-aid this team together with, like the Phil Rivers era, the Matt Ryan era, Flacco for a spell. I don't blame them for trying to swing on Anthony Richardson. What I do blame is the head coach and the offensive coordinator for allowing Richardson to lead the league in deep pass attempt rate, 18.9%. That's not going to help. That's not, those are low percentage plays with an inaccurate QB. We need to start attacking the short and the middle areas of the field. So if they don't take a step forward, I think we'll probably see it rather the coaches go over Ballard, the roster is not terrible. I like a lot of the
No.
things they've done, and I don't want to put the onus and all the blame on Ballard for taking a swing on Richardson, who went after Bryce Young, who went after C.J. Stroud. He was the best option for them at number 4 overall in that given draft class. But I just think that the responsibility really has to come down to the play calling and trying to maximize Richardson's skill set if that's the path they choose. Should Daniel Jones come, it's wheels up for all of the pass catchers. We're
Yes.
finally getting catchable targets. We know where it's going too. It's going to Josh Downs in the slot and it's going to Michael Pittman on the perimeter. These two have both commanded a 20 to 25% target share these last 2 years. Both have been, I wouldn't say touchdown driven, but they've been very PPR reception heavy driven, largely thanks to Joe Flacco. And when we look at these receivers and try to like transition into that, the efficiency metrics are so hard to talk about these guys because of the poor QB play and the off-target throw rate from Richardson. That's really just kind of torpedoed them, and that makes drafting these Colts receivers a real big challenge in 2024 or 2025, pardon me, because we're unsure of what kind of games does Richardson start and play? Is it 5 games? Is it 15? Is it Daniel Jones playing 15? Because that greatly oscillates where we put these Pittman and Downs guys in our rankings relative to everyone else. You can throw Tyler Warren in there too. The receivers are just so tough where I'm really trying to make them best ball only targets and not players I want to roster in a typical redraft start sit format.
Yeah, it's you mentioned it's hard to project when you don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback situation, right? Like that changes everything. Like Michael Pittman, I would probably see like a wide receiver 3/4 with Anthony Richardson under center. I might be willing to bump that up to a high end three, with Daniel Jones under center. You can make a case for low end two. I'm not saying that that's what's going to be, but Downs, like we saw it, right? We saw it with when Flacco played football for them. The production was just so much higher. They're talented pass catchers. Downs is very talented. Pittman is very talented. He's a very good receiver. And it all comes down to quarterback play here, right? It all comes down to who's under center. It's probably one of the toughest receiving situations to deal with here going into 2025, in my opinion, because it's not like other situations where the group is not that great or, the quarterback is okay, but the group is not there. No, this is two very talented wideouts who are getting hurt by the fact that they have a quarterback that cannot get them to football. That's just truly what it is. So it is a very difficult situation here to kind of deal with as a fantasy manager if you're drafting. I think you have the right mindset, right? Where you don't take them too much in redraft, and if you want to invest in them, making them best ball formats where you don't have to worry about when that week is that they're going to play, when Daniel Jones is going to be under center, if at all. And if you do have clarity, or before the season starts, understand like even if Daniel Jones does enter the season as a starter, that's not locked in that he's the guy the rest of the season. Like this is going to be like this, I think, for the entirety of the season until one player truly takes over and wins that job. Because we could see Daniel Jones starting early on in the season if he beats out Richardson. A couple of bad games from Jones, and you mentioned that he's not Mr. Consistent whatsoever, right? A couple of
Mhm.
bad games for him. They might say, you know what, let's see what Anthony Richardson got. So this could be one of those situations that you're dealing with throughout the season this year. So I completely agree with you when it comes to that. Any other receiver? Yeah, we'll talk about Warren now, but any other receiver here, Pierce is any other receiver that you're looking at for the Colts?
Yeah, Pierce took a big step forward last year.
Yeah.
He was somehow able to find his way under those moon balls from Richardson. Career high 824 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, led the league with a 22.3 yards per reception mark. He's got the confidence of both GM Chris Ballard and head coach Shane Steichen. Both guys praising him, both guys saying that he's an excellent football player, and they're looking forward to him having a big year. I usually don't put a lot of stock in that, but when I look at what AD Mitchell brought to the table last year, who was the speedster, the typical Ballard guy that's super athletic, it looked like Pierce just kind of shoved him in a locker.
Yeah.
Uh, Pierce just really kind of took that wide receiver three role. So I'm down to draft him too, particularly in best ball where we get those big spike weeks. So I did want to definitely talk about him before we moved on.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to because he's that home run hitter for them. Like
Yeah.
that guy that's going to he'll turn one catch into 60, 70 yards and it's like, bye, see you later. I'm out. I think he's fun to watch. Redraft, I'm out. Like it's just very difficult to project for that. I think it'll take multiple injuries for him to actually see a consistent weekly target share if with this offense given how it looks right now. So um other than that though, like I'm not looking outside of those three receivers and we'll talk about the tight end position now, but I'm not looking at anyone else here. AD Mitchell, you mentioned it, like I know there was excitement about him last year. I'm not going there myself. It's really tough to, to make that case. Um, Tyler Warren, though. Let's talk about Tyler Warren, the tight end that they drafted in the first round. I like this young man a lot. I think he is immediately going to carve out a role for the Colts. But we go back to who's going to be throwing the football. Like that's my thing. I want to like him. I want to invest in him. But shit, man, if it's Anthony Richardson throwing the football, it's going to be rough, man. It's going to be rough. Where do you stand with Tyler Warren?
I agree. It's really tough to evaluate this because adding one more piece to kind of lower the collective target shares of everybody is the most likely outcome because Warren was super productive at Penn State. He's the type of playmaker where they actively were trying to target in this year's draft class, saying we needed more production over the middle of the field. Warren fills that void to a T. I just think fantasy investors are going to be left wanting more because it's going to be so like hit or miss or inconsistent with Richardson's accuracy issues. I'm going to be fading him in start sit formats, but I don't mind some sporadic shots in best ball because again, it just really matters when this QB transition occurs. Because Warren can go from unusable to a guy will be starting every single week if Daniel Jones is under center. So there's a lot of risk. I think the reward's a bit capped because there's so many great pass catchers here in this offense, and it just kind of uh, limits the overall ceiling potential. But I don't mind tight end 11. That's fine to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like he could be a league winner for you if Daniel Jones was under center. Like that's the kind of player he can be, right? He could be a difference maker. I'm not gonna say he's gonna set the world on fire like Brock Bowers did last year by any means, but he could be a very, very good tight end with the right quarterback situation there. It's a very difficult passing offense to really dive into right now with so many variables like up in the air right now. So um I like the long-term outlook. I think in Dynasty, if you're looking long-term, you invest in him because I think eventually they're going to get that quarterback situation right in Indianapolis. But in the short term, that it could be very volatile and it could be a high variance play when it comes to Warren there. Does that mean no more Jelani Woods? Is that project over there in Indy? I know there was a lot of expectations for him, but is that project over in Indy?
Yeah, we can put a fork in that one.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. We're done with that one. You know who we're not done with? It's my guy Jonathan Taylor. I was really big on him last year, man, and he bounced back, had a good season. I'm in again this year, man. Like I view Jonathan Taylor as one of those guys that kind of people look at him boring, and I think he's good. He's very good running back. He's going to get you some big gains. Uh, Someone that could run in between the tackles. I think he's a very talented running back. You mentioned, the offensive line. There were some issues. I think they worked on that. They could have done better, I think, with the offensive line, but I don't think it's a bad offensive line by any means. I'm in on Jonathan Taylor. I view him as a top 10 running back. He finished, I believe it was sixth in PPR points per game last year, sixth or seventh in that department last year. Top 10 back in my book this season, man. Where are you at with Jonathan Taylor?
Agree with you. Top 10 back for sure. I did talk about the offensive line have struggles in pass protection. I think some of that was on the onus of Richardson. Run
Yeah.
blocking, they
No,
were
they were
great.
top six. Yeah, they were top six.
Yeah, they were number four in run block win rate by ESPN's metric, number six in the stat you're looking at. But yeah, Taylor returns to a bell cow role. You add the rushing threat of Richardson, opens up rushing lanes for him. Taylor averaged a career high 21.6 attempts per game last year. A little bit of boom bust though. There were 10 of 14 games he cleared 100 yards from scrimmage. The other four he was under 60. So there's that. But 10 of 14's really great in my eyes.
Yeah.
So I think he's well worth the investment there. There are some shortcomings with him as a pass catcher, but I think he's firmly in that top 10, top 12 mix once again. Handcuffing him is a question we often get. The Colts added DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. I think he'll be in the mix to compete with Khalil Herbert, who I like as an addition this offseason. Tyler Goodson, kind of an incumbent. Honestly, it looks like it was a position battle to monitor. Looks like something we don't really have the answer for at this time, but something to monitor come August.
Yeah, and just to go back, they were tied fourth in run block. It wasn't
Nice.
six. I thought they were six. No, they were tied fourth in run block there. So, yeah, running the ball, they were good. It was like you mentioned, it was protecting the quarterback there. So yeah, I'm in on Jonathan Taylor this year. Where's ADP wise? Is he going in that top 10 in that? I'm assuming he's going in that second, third round.
Late two. He's RB8 going off the board at 20.9.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's fine. I feel like if you're going to invest in I think he gives you a really strong floor. I know he had some volatility last year. I think he gives you a pretty strong floor. And I think there's a immense upside. I think again, top 10, man. I feel like you are not going to go wrong with Jonathan Taylor here, so long as he stays healthy there. Anything else here for the Colts that we haven't discussed?
Let me ask you, Achan, Taylor, Irving. Those are 7, 8, 9. How would you rank those?
Bucky Irving.
Bucky Irving, RB9, yeah.
uh, I'll go with Taylor and HN to me are like right there, like neck and neck. I don't have Irving that close to them.
Okay.
So I would go Taylor, HN, and Irving to answer your question. I
Okay.
probably won't have much Irving if that's where he's going. Because I'm
Yeah.
going to safely assume that he's going ahead of guys like Josh Jacobs, guys like Derrick Henry. Like, do you prefer Derrick Henry at his price or Irving? Because we've talked about Henry.
Yeah, so Henry's the front end of round two. Irving's the back end of round two. So I don't think you'll have the opportunity to choose between the two,
Okay.
with drafters most likely selecting Henry early. Um, but yeah, I'm in on Henry at cost. Sorry, I kind of derailed us there, but I think Achane and Taylor being a tier above Bucky Irving makes sense to me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. That's how I have it right now. All right, let's jump to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'm not giving up on my boy Trevor Lawrence just said. I know when Russell watches this, I know he's not giving up on him either, Russell. Um, but man, it was bad. Needless to say, it was bad. Look, they dealt with a lot of injuries there. I think the bright spot for them last season was having Brian Thomas. He really looked like like a really good pick for them, a really good receiver. I think he's entering the season without a doubt as their number one guy. I think this young man is going to be very good in this league, and I think he showcased that last season. I don't think that was a fluke. I think that's going to continue. I think he's going to pick up and grow from last season, right? When you look at some key losses, though, they lost Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram. They lost Luke Farrell. I don't think that matters. Mac Jones doesn't matter. So they did add. Travis Hunter in the draft. And we're gonna have a little discussion about that, whether wide receiver, cornerback, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but man, this is a team that I don't know, man. This offense is not one I'm overly excited about going into the season. I've been more excited about them in years past, and I feel like it's very difficult to gauge this offense in 2025. Where are you at with this team? How do you think they did in the draft and in free agency?
Well, last year's group just really struggled across the board. They couldn't score points. They couldn't prevent them. They were bottom 10 in each of these categories, respectively. They were 4 and 13. Two of their wins came against the Colts. So, talk about Brian Thomas Jr. being the bright spot. I think the other bright spot was seeing the Colts on their schedule twice. Um, they allowed a league high 40,375 passing yards against them. Yeah, them landing with a top five draft pick was should have been no surprise. They jettisoned last year's coaching staff and members of the front office. We got a new general manager in here. We got a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Just a whole new clean slate. Clean slate with Trevor Lawrence, which is an interesting thing to say. I will say, Liam Cohen, though, what he did with Baker Mayfield, 4,500 passing yards, 40 passing touchdowns. I'm bullish. I'm bullish on a rebuild here, and I'm bullish for several reasons. The massive step forward for Brian Thomas Jr. as a rookie. I thought at LSU he had a lot of work to do in terms of his route running. This guy did a he hit the ground running last year, and half his games came with Mac Jones under center. So I was really impressed with what we saw for Brian Thomas Jr. The other reason I am bullish, Travis Hunter Jr. I think this kid is extremely special. I'm not going to start doubting him now. We'll talk about him when we hit the receiver position, but those two guys, the combination of Liam Cohen creating plays, Trevor Lawrence behind an offensive line that should improve. They added some new guys this
Yeah.
offseason. I think there's a reason to be a bit more bullish in terms of what their outlook is. And I'll be frank, this defense didn't do anything to really move the needle and improve that much. I don't really care what you want to say about Jordan Lewis from the Cowboys. He's not a needle mover in terms of improving a defense that was dead last. Um, yeah, and then we add in like the running back. I like Bashal Tutin, one of their selections. I think he's a home run hitter waiting to happen. So yeah, I'm really, really impressed with what we saw from General Manager James Gladstone in his first year. I think they did a great job here for in terms of rebuilding this unit, despite sending away a future first to make it happen. But I'm excited for it.
No, like so I think they did a good job, right? This offseason. I think it's going to take time though. I think this is going to take some time to really get going. You mentioned it, and so I did not talk about this. So they added Patrick McCurry and they added Robert Hainsey. Like that's two really good additions there to the offense.
Two
That's
starters, two
yes,
starters.
correct. And Hainsey coming from Tampa Bay. That's let's keep that in mind there. Um, so I do think and then I do think I agree with you, and we're going to talk about Hunter as a receiver. I know there's been mixed reviews about him, cornerback, receiver. What he's going to look. I think they have two really good receivers right now, like in Thomas Jr. and in Hunter. Um, as far as Trevor Lawrence is concerned, let's talk about him. Let's dive right into the quarterback. Like you say, let's rip off that Band-Aid. All right. Is our golden child is he going to produce this year for us, or are we is he what he is showing us he is? Like I still think that he's better than what he's displayed. I'm not gonna forget that season that he the second half of the season just balled, took the team to the playoffs. Like that year is what I was expecting from him moving forward. It hasn't been that. Um, do you think he takes that leap this year, or does he continue to struggle and maybe take some time before he gets there?
I think it's fair to say we can still kind of grade him incomplete, which feels like an excuse. This guy's been in the league long enough where we shouldn't be giving him incomplete grades, especially with the contract that he's earned, quote unquote earned. I don't think he earned that contract, to be
Yep.
honest with you. Um, I will say the fact that Cohen's now coaching this offense and that we've got an improved offensive line, some good pass catchers. I think this is a good chance to see Lawrence show us what he has. Um, I haven't been as gung ho as you and Russ with Lawrence and backing him because I've just felt so uncertain and I haven't seen enough in a consistent fashion to make me say one way or the other. I think he is just kind of okay. and okay is fine for the NFL. I just think he now has a situation and an environment where he can go from okay to great or okay to good or okay from, you know what I'm saying? There's room for a step forward. And if he can do that, then I think I'll be far more bullish next year for him to take another step forward with both Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter getting more reps under their belt, with Cohen entering year two, with Lawrence feeling more confident behind that offensive line. But those are all like a bunch of what ifs, and we're stacking a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
So I don't blame anybody who's just kind of out on Lawrence as a fantasy asset because the rushing skill set is it's like there's like a bar for rushing where we consider rushing QBs, and he's right under that bar. But he can do it. He doesn't do it with any kind of consistency though, and so it's really tough to like put him anything higher than the QB2, upper end QB2, which is what he was last year, 16.8 fantasy points per game when healthy. QB 16. That's fine. That's fine. But I think it's really up to Cohen here to maximize Lawrence's potential. So I'm just going to sit back, watch this one. I'm not investing in Lawrence, but I will invest in his weapons.
Yeah, so I have been far more bullish than I am going to be this year. I think I'm going to take your approach, but not as relaxed as you, not sitting all the way back, you know?
All
Like
the way back, yeah.
I might have my seat inclined a little bit, you know, just a little bit. It's definitely not going to be upright like it's been the last couple of years. I've swung and missed on him way too much. Um, but I do think, like, I agree with you. I think it's going to be time. Like, I don't think it's, and maybe I will be wrong after this season, but I don't think it's going to happen this year where he just boom, like all of a sudden, like elevates to that quarterback we wanted. I do think he's going to take a step forward from where he was last year. You know, and I do think he's going to be better. I think, like you mentioned, like the two receivers he has, in my opinion, like, you know, you have Thomas and now you have Hunter. That's probably the best duel he's had. You know, you can maybe make a case when he had relief. No, I think this is probably the best duel he has there. Um, the offensive line, I think that's the big thing, right? Because that's improved here, and that's been an issue in Jacksonville since he stepped in there. So I want to be excited, right? But I've been let down so much. It's one of those things where you want to be
Yeah.
excited, but you've been let down so much. I haven't given up on my guy, Trevor Lawrence, just yet. I still have plenty of his rookie cards. I'm still going to be investing in his rookie cards. All right. But I'm proceeding with caution here. That's exactly what I'm going to do with Trevor Lawrence. I view him as a QB2 as well this season. I've, taken him as a QB1. I will have Jacksonville Jaguar stacks without a doubt. But it won't be as aggressive as I've been in years past. So super flex leagues, I'll take him as my QB2. In, two quarterback leagues, I'll take him as my QB2. In single QB leagues, I don't feel as confident with him as my QB1 as I feel like, some of the other quarterbacks we've talked about, like Bo Nix, CJ Stroud, that we talked a little bit about earlier. Like, feel a little bit more comfortable with those players in a single quarterback league versus someone like Lawrence. But I still think he will be that guy we expected him to be. And not you, maybe me or Russ. I'm still optimistic. All right. Still optimistic about him. All right, let's jump right into the pass catchers here, Tyler. What talk to me about Hunter. You said you had something to say. Talk to me about Hunter.
I mean, the draft capital they gave up to move up to get him signifies they have every intention of utilizing him very heavily right out the gate. Not only is he the reigning Heisman winner, he's also the Beltnikoff Award winner for best receiver in the nation. This dude just does it all. He's such an incredible athlete. He gains separation with ease. He checks all the technical boxes in terms of his release and catching skill set, especially in zone. He's a dangerous, dangerous dude in zone where you see those uh those reps at cornerback really take over where he's just a great ball hawk. And he's a dangerous in the open field. Um, I just think he's a fantastic prospect. I think he has the capital to immediately garner a, let's say, 23 to 25% target share with Brian Thomas Jr. kind of in that same range where we often see some of these offenses really concentrate the targets between their top two pass catchers, with both those guys clearing the 50% collectively. I think this is a situation where we see that unfold here, where both these guys can overlap in terms of how they're utilized, and they also complement each other with how Brian Thomas can win and Hunter can win. I just think Liam Cohen's going to be in his bag right now, creating a lot of plays and uh, combination of routes to get these guys to score a lot of production. I'm going to let others worry about the defensive snaps and him potentially tiring himself out. I just think this dude hits the ground running. I want to be there from day one. Very, very bullish on him.
So for perspective, you mentioned, Cohen there. So last year, Tampa Bay, when we're looking at target shares, I pulled it up 27% when Chris Godwin was healthy, 27% target share, 24% target share for Mike Evans. Like right there. Like I feel like we could see that. Now, if you have to choose who's going to be the number one guy, like I'm going to say Thomas Jr. myself. Like, do you think that's how they'll play out, where it's going to be Thomas Jr., you know, demanding the majority, like the majority of that 50%? And when I mean the majority, I mean 26, 24, 20, 27, 23. I'm not saying 30, 30 to 20 or anything like that. Right there, but I still think it'll be um Thomas Jr., at least in 2025. Whether that changes after that, we remains to be seen, but I think 2025.
Yeah, I think you should definitely do it that way. Thomas, bigger frame body. I think he's a great red zone target. We also have those big plays deep down the field that he can excel at for sure. I think Brian Thomas Jr. has the highest ceiling in year one. He's being drafted accordingly. He's wide receiver 8 right now. Travis Hunter, wide receiver 23. But I'm kind of into either one. I don't mind grabbing either one at cost. I think this is a team to get in on right now, particularly because this defense is going to be so darn bad. They're just going to be forced to throw a lot.
Man, I think I'm going to be wasting a lot of Armando bucks on this Jacksonville Jaguar stack the more we talk about it. Not gonna lie to you. Um, yeah, I'm in on Thomas. I'm in on Hunter. I took him in my dynasty league, and that one is, I'm double dipping because that's an IDP league as well. So
Hey,
I get the double dip there. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think if you're in an IDP league, by the way, like if you're in an IDP dynasty league as well, and your scoring settings is set for, like, you should not be skipping on Hunter in any of your drafts. Like if you are able to double dip. Um, do you think I think he's going to be a receiver first. Like that's what I think he's going to be. Do you think he's going to be a receiver first, or are they going to use it as a corner? I think you answered that already, but I just want to clarify because that's a question that a lot of people have and a lot of doubt and uncertainty. I think he's going to be utilized as a receiver first. I see some places they have him listed as a cornerback, like in the depth chart. I see some places listed as a receiver. Where do you stand with it when it comes to that?
that just seems so foolish to me. I mean, we heard the general manager Gladstone talk about this. We've heard the head coach Liam Cohen both talk about this. Let me see if I can pull up a quote here. Um, we'll have a plan for Travis Hunter. He'll primarily play on offense while learning the defensive system and practicing on the defensive side during the offseason program. We got to be fluid through this process. We've had multiple at-length conversations with the training, sports science, equipment, coaching, everybody involved in this process. But yeah, that just tells me right now that they're a player they anticipate being wide receiver first, cornerback second. That's a quote from the Coach Speak Index. Want to give him some credit there over on Twitter. Um, I don't think there's anything more to add. I think he's the guy that's going to be playing wide receiver first, and he'll be learning some defense along the way. This was a guy that was no stranger to playing 100 plus snaps in a game during his collegiate time at Colorado. I'm all the way in.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Any other receiver tight end that you're in on here? Brendan Strange is now going to be the tight end one. Like I feel like he did okay, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like he did okay, but have him in that Dalton Schultz like range, like not exciting, man. 6 to 8 fantasy points, unless any of the top guys. Like I feel like 50% of the target share, like you mentioned, I would say 55% of the target share is going to be, 50 to 55% of the target share is going to go to the receivers here. Yeah, we'll talk about the backfield now, and then you have other pieces there. I think they added Diami Brown too.
Mhm.
Here, yeah, Parker Washington. Outside of the Hunter and Thomas Jr., for me, I'm out. Do you see it any other way?
I think the most likely candidate for number three targets is Strange, who averaged 5.0 targets per game whenever Evan Ingram was off the field. So we had 8 games of that, four of which were with Lawrence, four of which were with Mac Jones. One of those games with Mac Jones was a one target, zero catch game. So even if we include that dud, he averaged 8.6 fantasy points per game, which is high floor, low ceiling. So maybe in best ball, preferred and tight end premium leagues where maybe we get like a random seven catch game. Like Evan Ingram, he got by via volume. Like, no, it was
Yes,
great. He got a lot of receptions. Uh, that's a statement I don't feel confident we can share in translating it over to Brenton Strange, um, especially after the investment in Hunter. So
correct.
I think there's going to be a big distance there with him being that wide receiver or target number three. You mentioned target share, maybe 15 to 17, 15 to 18, which isn't a real needle mover. We're really only looking at it for the spike weeks that are sporadic. So again, best ball or tight end premium leagues. It's probably it for me for Strange. No interest in Diami Brown. I think he's just going to run clear out routes. Parker Washington. When Christian Kirk was sidelined, Washington was that primary slot receiver for them. He was wide receiver 60 during that span on a per game basis. Granted, they were almost all games with Mac Jones under center, but I've seen enough from Parker Washington. He's not it.
He's not. He is not it. Let's dive into the backfield here because this is, in my opinion, a nightmare. If you're thinking about investing in it right now, you got Travis Etienne. There's the reports that they're not happy, they don't believe in him, they're this, and then you have Tank Bigsby. Etienne did live up to expectations as of now, for this franchise. You mentioned they drafted Tooth there. How are you approaching this backfield? I've been asked this, and I'm not I'm not going to invest in ETN. Like, I think week one, right? Week one, I think ETN will be their starter. And I'm saying in air quotes because that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get 20 opportunities. That doesn't mean he's going to get 18 opportunities. He could start for them, and I could see where he gets 11 opportunities. I could see Bigsby getting 8 to 9 opportunities, and then I could see Juden coming in and also getting 5 to 7 opportunities. Like, we could see that kind of nightmare early on in the season. Eventually, I think ETN will take a step back in this offense. And maybe I'm wrong for viewing it that way, but it's hard to envision it any other way with everything we have right now, the information we have, and going back to last year, kind of how they treated this backfield. And then we also saw this, okay, in Tampa Bay last year, where White started off and then Bucky Irving just took over. Like, we could see a similar situation play out here in Jacksonville this year. How are you approaching this? Because I I'm staying away as of right now.
I'm doing a written article over on Fantasy Guru to follow up these podcasts and YouTube videos. So it's all written out there if anyone wants to read rather than listen or consume content that way. And one of the biggest things I have in all bold is this is just a mess for fantasy. It's gross. Um, ETN, big step backwards last year, went from 16.6 fantasy points per game, almost halved it to 8.7 fantasy points per game. Career lows in yards per carry, missed tackles forced per attempt, yards after contact per attempt, rush yards over expectation per attempt. Just so bad across the board. Tank Bigsby, on the other hand, he was looking great. 4.6 yards per carry, almost 800 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, top 10 among all backs in rushing yards over expectation. So in that same metric where Etienne was bottom dwelling, he was top 10 right behind guys like James Cook and Jameer Gibbs. So it's like such a stark contrast. Then you throw in the wrench of Bashal Tutin, who uh, a 4.32 second 40-yard dash guy. He led all Power 5 backs in career yards after contact per attempt and missed tackles forced per attempt in this year's class. He's an older prospect, but he's NFL ready in my eyes. He's kind of like RJ Harvey equivalent, just with two rounds of less capital. um, if this guy can clean up his fumbles, this is just going to be an absolute disaster for fantasy owners trying to figure out and make heads or tails of this situation. He's being priced, Tootin being priced as the highest running back in this group here, going off the board first, RB 37. ETN's not far behind at RB 39, and then Bigsby RB 47. So they're all within 10 spots of one another to make it even more cloudy and confusing. Um, this is the type of situation where I've seen enough from ETN where I think the writing's on the wall. They drafted Tootin. They also drafted around seven back LaQuint Allen to add some depth there. But it kind of tells me that they're kind of done with ETN. He's entering the contract year. I think he's just kind of on the way out. Bigsby, I think, was a pleasant surprise last year after year one of doing diddly. He didn't do anything as a rookie. So year two was a big breakout for him. But they definitely need some more playmakers. And Tootin, I think, offers that complement to what Bigsby offers. Um, I was trying to find a reason to be bullish on drafting Bigsby as the last guy of the group, but I think I really just want to take my swings on Tootin, knowing that usually in these situations, rookies end up seeing more playing time as the season progresses. And when we count in ETN's injuries, ETN's ineffectiveness, the fact that it's a new coaching staff and a new general manager, a new front office that invested in Tootin, and neither one of ETN nor Bigsby, I'm going to put my chips on Tootin as the guy that is the one you want come season's end. And we talk about this often where season fantasy leagues aren't won in September, they're won late in the year. Tootin will be the one I'll be drafting the most.
And that's exactly kind of what I was alluding to there. Like you beginning of the year, sure, ETN might get it. But man, at the end of the season, I don't think he's going to be that guy for you. I just simply don't. And for that reason, I'd rather not. It's either that or you draft him and you sell him high after a first couple of weeks if he gets off to a hot start, right? Like that would be the way maybe I view it. But man, how quickly he fell off, right? He went from RB7 in PPR points per game to RB42 in PPR points per game. He RB3 nearly 1,500 yards to RB35. It was bad, like bad, and one good season. That's it. That's what we got it from ETN, man. And until he finds himself a new home, I don't know if we're going to see that again, if at all, throughout his career. So I'm with you, man. Like if you're going to invest in this backfield, it's to and then Bigsby would be my second option, believe it or not. He would be if out of the three, he would be my second option. ETN, I'm out, man. I'm unfortunately out this season. I agree with you. The writing's on the wall. I think he has one foot out the door here in Jacksonville. And that's how I see this, man. So I'm with you 100%. Anything else here in Jacksonville that you want to talk about?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
All right, last team in this division, the Tennessee Titans. They had the number one pick. They took Cam Ward, former UM quarterback there. Obviously, that means that the Will Levis project is officially over there in Tennessee. Rightfully so, I think, right? Rightfully so there. They lost a couple of players. They added some offensive line. So I think this team they added a lot of little pieces here. They added offensive line. Obviously, they got a new quarterback. They drafted a couple of receivers here. They drafted some secondary plays. Where do you stand with this offense or this team, not the offense, I'm sorry, this team as far as how they did this offseason and in the draft? Like Cam Ward, do you think that was the pick at number one overall?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It's listen, this is a team that had one of the worst offenses in the league last year with Will Levis under center, where they benched him multiple times due to just ineffectiveness, and they just didn't want memes to cover the internet of him making goofy plays. They just had to move on, and I think that's totally legitimate. They were just not great. I think they were 30th in the EPA per play. They were 29th in overall success rate. Just not great. Um, Number one selection, I think you take a swing at the QB. I like what they did here. Ward had some great seasons under Miami, setting the franchise record for most passing yards, most passing touchdowns. He set the most. He set the record for the most D1 touchdown passes in collegiate history with 158. This guy's been around for a bit. He's calm under pressure. He can progress through multiple reads, throws with anticipation, and he's not frantic, which I think frantic's the best word to describe Will Levis. Um, so I think it'll be a big step up. I think he also is surrounded by a great offensive line to immediately get the most out of him in year one. We talked about the free agency added. Left tackle Dan Moore was a big contract, 4 years, 82 million. Right guard Kevin Zeitler, a 1 year, $9 million deal, but he's like 34 years old. Kind of makes sense for him to be on a short-term deal. But those were heavy hitters. They're guys that are going to start right away, and they really fill out that line from left to right fantastically for a young rookie QB to come in there. Also, keep in mind the uh, the offensive line coach Brian Callahan is esteemed as one of the best in the business at his position. So add in all the capital they've spent there, add in the great coaching, add in the fact that Cam Ward does really well in plays that are under structure, where I think that line's going to give him time to go through the reads in within the structure of a play before we get to see the magic happen and him out on the run, making things in an improvised fashion. So when you're not able to surround your players with elite wide receivers, I think investing in the trenches is a sound way to go. And that's the way the Titans went.
Yeah, and you get rid of the guy that puts mayonnaise in his coffee too, right? Like, come on, like
Yeah.
that's when things were going south with Will Levis when we found that out. Yeah, I think you said it best. I think it may have been on a roster coach live stream, but you said it best. Cam Ward enters his rookie campaign as a potential floor play for you, right? And that's how I see it. I think there's a floor play. You just talked about the offensive line key additions. You talked about the offensive line coach. He is one of the best in the business. There's no denying that he's one of the best in the business. Then they added pieces in the receiving group too. You already have Calvin Ridley. They added Tyler Lockett, right? Van Jefferson. I get it. He's not great, but they added Van Jefferson. They drafted players in the two wide receivers in the fourth round as well. So you're adding pieces here, and Tony Pollard out of the backfield is, in my opinion, very good. Tajay Spears is a very good running back. Like these are not elite guys, but they're good running backs. They're good players. So I do think that there's a really, I want to say sneaky like supporting cast here, right? Like it's not elite, it's not great, but it's very solid, like a rock solid foundation. So I think there's a lot to work with here in this upcoming season. So let's talk about you talked about Cam Ward as far from a fantasy standpoint. Obviously, in Dynasty, you're more than likely going to be the top QB off most boards here. Um, but in a redraft or in a best ball setting, are you taking him as a QB2? Or are you more of QB3? Where are you at with Cam Ward? And he's going to be the starter in week 1, right? Like that's where you're seeing. No,
They've reportedly said it'll be an open competition between him and Levis, but
that's not going to be a
that
competition.
that's for show. That's for show.
Yeah, that's not going to be a competition. Like I'm not. That's one of those fluff reports, right? We don't talk fluff on this podcast. That's fluff. All right, there's no competition there. There's no way in hell that they're really gonna let them compete.
Yeah.
And if they do, I think I know who the winner is here.
Yeah.
Um,
To
so
answer the question though, I think he's off the single QB fantasy radar. I don't think you really need to go that route, but definitely back end QB2 for
yeah,
Superflex, two quarterback. He'll probably be that second quarterback that you stream based off matchup with another second quarterback.
correct. All right, I don't think we have to spend too much time on him. I think we know what we're going to get here. Let's talk about the receiving group. All right, Calvin Ridley, number one receiver on this roster. He's going to be their guy. He's going to be the guy that I think assumes the majority of the target share. He'll lead the team in target share so long as he's healthy, in my opinion. Here, Van Jefferson, Tyler Lockett. You got Ayumaner. That's someone I got him in our dynasty. Um, so where are you at with this receiving group?
I think it's a pretty interesting group. Letting Calvin Ridley go was a big move here, but um, I think that 1,000 yard the campaign we saw from Ridley, uh, back end wide receiver three, top 20 guy in ESPN's open metric, scored the same rating basically as Jamar Chase and a higher rate than Justin Jefferson. So everyone likes to say Calvin Ridley's kind of on the tail end of his career, but I think he's still a very strong fantasy receiver. On a run heavy team, this guy was averaging a 22% target share, led the league in air yards. Like this guy is a big playmaker down the field, and Levis was a guy that was willing to take those deep shots. I think we're still going to see that with Ward, just to a lesser degree. I think we're going to see less of the volatility that that Ridley displayed, and a higher floor on a week to week level. Um, I think we're going to see just a lot of those unrealized air yards turn into actual on field productivity, and probably a likely bump in touchdowns, given that we saw just 4 scores from Ridley in that year. I think he could be a top 25 asset if all things go well. But behind him, I think it's really just going to be a rotation of sorts. Lockett enters his age 33 season. Traylon Burks remains the perennial what if he can stay healthy. Van Jefferson, I think just the guy I kind of added. Um, yeah, I don't really know. I think behind him it could be a mix throughout the year when we look at like weeks 1 through 18 as a whole. But the rookie Alik Manor, I think out of Stanford is the guy that I'm most interested in. I just think it's probably more of my dynasty brain being interested rather than my redraft brain, which needs to acknowledge that there's probably going to be some delay in him hitting the field and being fantasy relevant. Maybe injuries occur where that process speeds up. Um, But I think the most realistic outcome is weekly volatility and weekly productivity from A.O. Manor, who's wide receiver 80. He's the only other guy on this Titans group that's got a top 200 ADP in early underdog drafts among the wide receiver group. Curious your thoughts on these wide receivers here.
Yeah, so for me, I look at really, I think there's going to be a steadier floor. Like for him, I agree with you. I think there's going to be a steadier floor. I think that you're going to see um, more of those short intermediate passes with Cam Ward, right? Like I feel like you're going to see that Cam Ward, a he's an accurate quarterback. So I don't think that you're going to see like those. Yes, you're going to see really stretch the field. You're going to see all that, but I also think there's going to be more of those intermediate passes, and you're going to see his route tree a little bit more expanded this year than you did last year with Will Levis. I think that is going to be something you see different with Ridley. So I'm interested in Ridley, man, because he's going to be, in my opinion, the security blanket. Like he's going to be Ward's go-to. He's going to be that player that Ward gets that confidence with and builds that confidence with. So I'm out on everyone else. I'm with you when it comes to Ayo Manor there. Like I think like from a dynasty standpoint, yes, I have him in our fantasy group dynasty league. Um, I think in best ball he makes sense because I think there will be some spike weeks, right? Like I don't see like you mentioned, Van Jefferson, just a guy. Tyler Lockett, my opinion, one dimensional, right? And at this stage of his career, doesn't bring too much to the table. You kind of saw him like slide off last year as well. Um, so it's there's pieces in this offense, but there's not that's why I said it's not a star-studded offense. Like I do think really is going to be very, very good. I think he'll be consistent here, and I think he's going to demand. Last year he had 24% target share. Don't see that going anywhere. He averaged 7.6 targets per game. I think that's what you're going to see here. I think you're going to see anywhere between 7 and 8 targets per game with the possibility of a little bit more, right? I do think that there's possibility for 8 to 9. So I don't mind. Where's curious to see. That's the one I don't have a read where Ridley is going right now. Is he going wide receiver 3 territory, wide receiver 4 territory?
He is right in the middle of wide receiver 3, wide receiver 30.
Okay. So I'm okay with that. Where are you viewing him as? I view him as a high end wide receiver 3, low end wide receiver 2. I think there's that potential for wide receiver 2 this year.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned, I think if everything goes right, I think he's got top 25 potential. So I'm very comfortable drafting a wide receiver 30 right there.
Yeah, so he was wide receiver 27 last year. Think there's right there makes a lot of sense. So I'm in on Ridley. I'm out on everyone else for the exception of the rookie we've talked about. And that's more, like I said, long-term dynasty or best ball, not in a redraft format. Just don't see the consistent floor for him here in year one. Um, Tight end situation here. How do you feel about it?
Stuff. So Okonkwo has been like a floor-based fantasy play, 12% target share last year. I kind of split time too with Josh Wiley. What I'm curious is if the addition of Ward and just going away from Levis and Rudolph means we'll probably see, will we see? It's a question mark. Will we see less two tight end sets and more three receiver sets and see the Callahan get back, head coach Callahan get back to more of his Bengals roots where we saw a lot of receivers that flood in the field? Um, that's something that could be something that transitions throughout the year where we see it ramp up with Ward when Ward gets more comfortable. So less 12, more 11, which could lead to less split time with Okonkwo with backup tight end Josh Wiley. So Okonkwo is seeing a bit more time. Problem for Okonkwo, and I'm not sure if this is chicken or egg, over the last 2 seasons, he has 7 combined end zone targets. So is the ceiling there? Is it because it's been poor QB play? I don't know. Outside of best ball stacking, I think you can look elsewhere. But I did at least want to mention that. The red zone thing is, I don't know.
It's bad, yeah. It is really bad. I if their moves are any indication as to what to expect, I do think you're going to see with a lot more 11 personnel, right? Like I do think that there are going to be a lot more 3 wideout sets here in Tennessee this year. Um, but man, it's just outside of really not even Okonkwo for me. Like I can't. Um, Gunnar Helm, they took him in the fourth round. Anything there, like as far as
Not year one.
yeah, no, I agree with you. Let's look at the backfield. Tony Pollard, good season last year. Tajay Spears. I think very good handcuff, someone that if Pollard is out, will get the job done for you as well. I am not completely out on this backfield. I actually think it's interesting. Um, where are you at with them?
Hell yeah, man. I'm with you. It's very interesting. We saw some very productive Sundays from Tony Pollard, especially in those games where Tajay Spears was out, which was often. He
Yeah.
had a mid-season hamstring injury, cost him 3 games. A concussion in week 11 cost him 2 games. A week 17 concussion cost him the week 18 finale. It's like in almost every single one of those games, Pollard cleared 20 plus opportunities. In fact, if we look at it from a full season length, 10 of 16 games, he cleared 20 plus opportunities. There's a lot to like with Pollard in that workload, which, I mean, entering the year, it was, again, Pollard's first year in Tennessee. We were expecting him to split the workload with Spears, but too many injuries piled up for Spears where Pollard just hit the ground running and uh, really excelled despite playing behind a line that ranked 30th in yards before contact per attempt. I think this year's iteration of that line should be a lot better in terms of on paper, provided everyone stays healthy. Add in the fact that defenses will now have to respect the pass with Cam Ward under center, no longer crowding the boxes of the Mason Rudolph led offense. I think Pollard, honestly, I think he outproduces his current RB 26 ADP. He's a strong buy for me.
Yeah, I'm in. That's RB. That's RB. They're drafting him as RB3. I have him RB2, bro. I am in on RB2 territory. I think it's a I think it's a safe play. Like I do think he's a safe play. Like I don't think you're investing a ton. I think you're gonna get good return on investment. Offensive line has improved. Quarterback situation has improved. Like, and he was RB 21, if I'm not mistaken, last year or in that range. So I mean, I'm viewing him as I would say it. So here we go. I'm going to put you now on the spot. Bucky Irving or Tony Pollard.
Oh, Bucky by a mile.
Really? That much?
Yeah,
Huh.
Bucky's a dynamic pass catcher, very, very explosive.
Okay.
Pollard, I think, has really been more of the volume-based play, but I'll take the explosive chunk gains for sure.
Yeah. I figure you would. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And see, I think it's close. I would take Pollard at his price over Irving at his price. Like, but
That's fair.
if you're looking at it from a player versus player perspective, I agree with you. I think Irving's the more exciting player here. But yeah, man, that's just very 20 RB 26. That's too cheap in my opinion for Tony Pollard. I was
Yeah.
heavily invested in him last year. I'll be heavily invested in him in this year. I think he's a strong option in any kind of format too, like best ball, season long. Like he's that running back that if you really go receiver early and you get your quarterback, take him. Like get him as your RB2, or even if you really miss on that running back, if you go with a kind of a zero or modified zero, like I wouldn't hate him as my guy.
Hell yeah,
Uh,
man. I think you could definitely do that. Like you could go pull up the full stop with zero RB. He's going mid round 7 right now. So like if you want to get crazy with it, let's say if we made him our round 7 selection, round 6 we also grab RB. That's 5 rounds to grab multiple receivers, an elite tight end, an elite quarterback, figure that part out, but 5 rounds to basically load up elsewhere and then hit running back 6 and 7 with Pollard being your RB2. I'm very content with that.
yeah, I agree. I think that's a good approach there. Do you handcuff with Tyler Spears? Because I feel like he's one of those handcuffs that will step into the role. Like, obviously he has a history of injuries too. Like there is that concern when it comes to Spears. But a healthy Spears, in my opinion, will take over a solidified role if Pollard were to miss time. I do think they'll lean on him heavily. Do you handcuff in this situation?
I don't think you need to. Only I don't handcuff like most people. I rarely ever handcuff. And I only really would ever do it where it's a clear one for one situation in an offense that I project to score a lot of points or have a lot of touches for their back. I don't know if I can say that with confidence with Spears. This is just not an offense I envision flirting with top 12 status
Yeah,
as of points per game level. So I will probably not be, but I definitely understand it if you want to.
yeah. That makes sense right there. Anything else here with Tennessee that we haven't discussed?
No, just hopefully a step forward for them.
Yep, I agree right there with you. Hey, hopefully it is a more competitive division, like you said at the beginning of the show. All right, let's do what we've been doing each and every show. Let's start ranking these positional players in this divisional league, and we'll start at the quarterback position for the AFC South here. What do you got? What do you got, Tyler?
All right, AFC South. So we've got, hold on, got to rack my
CJ
brain here for a second here.
CJ Stroud, the question mark in Indianapolis. We got Cam Ward. and we got the beautiful hair of Trevor Lawrence, all that hair.
Dude, this is a bunch of
It,
QB2s and
it is.
lower.
It is.
I want to go with Stroud, Lawrence, Ward, and then I don't know what to do with the Colts, so I'm just putting them fourth.
It's tough to disagree, right? Like, okay, so I'm gonna go with Stroud, Lawrence 100%. If I knew week one Daniel Jones was a starter, I would have Daniel Jones over Ward. If it's Anthony Richardson starting, I'm gonna have Ward over Richardson. That's kind of where I'm at here. So 100% CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, and then it really depends on who starts for Indy in week one. But to play it safe, we do Ward and then the big question mark there in Indianapolis. All right, let's take a look at running backs here for this group. I think, some pretty good running backs here, right? You have Jonathan Taylor, you have Joe Mixon, you have Pollard, and you have the question mark in Jacksonville. Um, I'm going
That's
Taylor, Mixon, Pollard, and question mark in Jacksonville. That's how I'm going to rank them.
Yep, yeah. I will have four as Tootin though. I'll take him for sure.
Two in. All right, let's do it. I'm on board. Let's go. I'm gonna jump on this two in train with you, dude. All right, I'm gonna do it. Let's
I
let's
like
let's
it.
do it. All right. Receivers. I think this is a little bit. I don't want to say challenging, but there's some good receivers in this division, dude.
Yeah.
Um,
Nico and Brian Thomas both fighting for top 12 status in
yes,
ADP.
yes,
Yeah,
I'm in. So I got Nico number one.
for sure. Same.
I got Thomas number two. This is where it gets dicey, right? Like this is where it gets dicey for me. Number three, are you going Ridley? Are
No,
you
I'm going
going
Travis
Hunter?
Hunter.
Hunter?
Hunter,
Do you
then
think they're
Ridley.
close? Do you think they're close still? Hunter and Ridley here?
In terms of ADP, Hunter's wide receiver 23, Ridley's wide receiver 30. So there's a gap. It's
Okay.
about it's only 14 selections though, so it's like one round
Yeah, it's
basically.
one round. Yeah.
So dealer's
Okay.
choice. I'm gonna go with Hunter.
All right. I will. I'm gonna go Ridley. So I'll go Nico Collins, Brian Thomas, Ridley, Hunter, and then I'm going to go with.
Josh Downs.
I was gonna say Pittman.
Okay,
I'll
we'll
go.
disagree there then.
I'll go with Pittman, man. But I'm not confident in that five.
Yeah, you could even throw Jaden Higgins, I
I
think,
was
into the
gonna
mix
say that. I
too.
was gonna say like Higgins is so appealing there. Like, yeah, I think there's too many variables for me right now. Like if we knew Kirk was going to be healthy, then it's tough to put Higgins there. Like if we knew Jones was under center, then it's you have a strong case for Downs, Pittman, whatever way you prefer it, right? Like it's very volatile
Hmm.
here. Tight ends. I'm not interested in any of these guys. But
Yeah,
what
Tyler
is it?
Warren at the top. So we got Tyler
Warren,
Warren, and then
Schultz.
no, it's just Warren. That's it. We we don't need
We're
to talk
not
about the
ranking these
others.
gues. We're not gonna. All right, so I'll do
Save
it.
the others for FFPC drafts.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right, Tyler, this was fun, man. I'm really enjoying doing this with you, man. Like always love breaking down football with you. You bring such a great perspective. I love the way you play the game. I love the way I love your analysis. I love all that stuff, man. So
Thank you.
again, thank you so much for jumping on here and talking this AFC South with me here. Like always, man, let everyone know where they can follow you, what you got cooking, what you got going on now.
Sure. Thank you again for having me on. It's been a blast doing these. Excited to see them on YouTube as well.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Congrats on that foray.
Thank you.
As far as content coming up, we've got honestly, it's our draft guide, which launches June 2nd. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. We'll be putting a lot of our eggs in that basket. We'll be continuing these previews as well. We've run through the entire AFC gamut. Next is up is the NFC. But yeah, it's been a blast doing these with you, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. Make sure you check out all of Tyler's work over there at fantasyguru.com. His best ball draft guide is the best. Like, go check it out. Don't waste time. It'll be out in mid-June. It'll be out by mid-June there, so make sure you check that out. You can find all of my work over at fantasyguru.com as well. You can find me on the social media at Armando_Marsal. That's Twitter and Mind the Marsal on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. This was episode number 102. We talked all things AFC South. For the great Tyler Buecher, I am Armando Marsal. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's journey through the mind of Marsal. Until next time.